This week on Obsessive Cycle Disorder, we're going to get some new body work on this bike. So the Rika kit comes with this bracket that mounts on the backbone, and the tank mounts here and the seat mounts back here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with getting this mounted up first. Okay, here we are at the backbone area, and this bracket just mounts right here across this existing cross member. The kit comes with these two nylon spacers and the bolts that you need to bolt it down. And once again, this is a temporary fitment while we get the rest of it mounted, and then I'll take these back out and Loctite them in. With that bracket bolted down, I can now make sure this is nice and centered. I'll drill that first hole with an 1/8 inch drill bit. And with that first one drilled, take one of the supplied rivets and rivet that in place. And then just continue drilling. So with that all riveted down, I could take these bolts back out and put a drop of Loctite on it and put them back in for good. Probably going to want to Loctite every single fastener on this bike. It's a big single cylinder and it vibrates a lot. There, that bracket's on there for good now. Now we can start putting on the tank, the seat, and the rear fender. We're just fitting this tank on temporarily for now so we could figure out where to drill the hole in the front to mount the tank. I'm going to use a little chunk of foam here to space the tank up off the backbone. I really only needed about 1/4 of an inch or so. I just don't want it riding the weight of the tank on the backbone. I want it to be on the mounting bolts. And make sure it's level left to right, and we'll mark the holes to drill to mount the front of the tank. Okay, I still have that 1/8 inch drill bit. We'll go ahead and drill the pilot holes with that. Step up the sizes to the 5/16 is about the size you're going to need. It's also important that you don't try to drill all the way through. Just go from one side to the other and step these holes up. The kit comes with a M8 by 55mm cap screw. It's still on there temporary for now. I'm going to send this off this next week to get powder coated along with the fender. It's kind of an interesting system they have for mounting this rear fender. There's some threaded rods here that go through this little tray on the bottom. I'm going to thread these through, but you got to get 2 nuts on the inside before it goes through that other side. Okay, now that we have the rod in position where we want it, go and back these nuts off their final positions so we can get Loctite underneath them. And I'm just using the blue Loctite. And then lock them all in position with 10mm wrenches. These threaded rods actually serve 2 purposes. These will be where the fender mounts, and these sections here will actually take a strap that holds the battery right here in the middle of this. Also wise to keep in mind, this is finished product, You need to be careful not to gouge it. Now we're gonna place our fender struts, approximately where we want them. And these go on the inside of the tail section. And I'm just placing these approximately vertical. I'm not gonna really torque these down or thread lock them until we know their final location. Okay, if you go with a flat fender like I did here, the Rika suggests cutting 12 inches of it off. So this side with the label on it, from here to about here is actually flat. This is where the machine grabbed it to pull it around the die to give it the radius. So I'm going to measure from this side 12 inches up. If you have one of these steel rulers, it's a lot easier. It'll go ahead and follow that radius, and then you can just mark at the top. So I like to keep some 1/4 inch masking tape on hand. Get you a nice straight line on there to cut. So I get to use the grinder one more time, cut this thing down. These fenders are about 6 inches wide, but they're not exactly. So you're going to have to measure to find the center line, and then measure up 1 inch from the bottom, and then 2 inches either way from the center line. So your mounting holes are 1/4 inch holes that are 4 inches apart on center. And again, you're going to want to start these holes with an 1/8 inch or smaller drill bit, and then step it up to the 1/4 inch. Now, these threaded rods are a little bit too long to allow for the tire to be mounted, and we need the wheel on there to see how the fender lines up with the wheel on. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off of here, and I'm going to leave about 1 inch for adjustment, and that'll give me clearance for my wheel. And we'll also need to bend these rods up a little bit to get the proper angle to the fender. Okay, this is the part that can be a little more difficult because you want as even a spacing around the tire as you can get. This fender is not exactly the same radius as the tire, so it's not going to be perfect, but I think we can make it better than this. I'm going to bump this, the bottom of this fender back that way a little bit more and see if we can't close up the gap here in front of the wheel. Looks like we're going to need to bend those threaded rods up just a little bit more, so wheel's going to come back out. Finally got the fender all lined up the way I want it. Okay, what I did is I got the Fender Strut over on the other side where I wanted it, and then I took measurements off of it to find out where to place it on this side. That way I know the fender will sit flat on the tire and the struts will be lined up. Starting with an 1/8 inch and then step it up to the 1/4. Okay, what I just did here was I marked on these threaded rods where I want this fender to land, because I'm still going to need to take this off and send it off to paint or powder coat. So when I come put it back together, I need to make sure all the hardware lands back in the right spot. While we're getting everything figured out, we may as well go ahead and get this seat fitted up here. And we go ahead and start with the seat springs. The kit comes with M8 by 25mm bolts. You have the option of mounting these above or below this plate. It raises or lowers the seat height by about I'd say about a ½ inch or so. I'm gonna start off with it underneath to keep the seat low and see how I like it. Riker recommends if you're 170 or less, you put it on the bottom. 170 or more, you put it on the top. I'm a bit more than 170, but I like the way it looks low. So I'm gonna see if I can't get away with it. I'm gonna go into this fully knowing that I could have to redo it. Okay, first of all, we have to attach this hinge to the front mounting bracket. And it has 2 washers, and the washer goes on the inside and the outside of this bracket. And the seat attaches to the hinge with more M8 bolts. All of this hardware is included in the kit. One more M8 bolts to go in. Hold this on the springs. Well, this is the first time I'm getting to sit on it and see how the bike fits me. I'm thinking that those springs are definitely going to have to go in the higher position. And these bars just have way too much pullback. I'm thinking, right about there would be really good. We're gonna have to swap out risers at least, if not risers and handlebars. Next week, I'm going to go ahead and send out my tank and my fender for either powder coat or paint. I haven't decided yet. Well, that'll wrap it up for this week. Thanks for watching.